listeners, Harika here, and I'm super excited to welcome you to UppTalk. If you're ready to learn and get your hands work wonders in the world of information technology, then you're in the right place. When I say UppTalk, we are not just another edtech company. Consider we are your learning partner committed to unlocking your full potential. Whether you're stepping into the world of technology for the first time or looking to advance your career, we provide top-tier, hands-on courses to build up your career. Let's take our first step towards learning here and explore it.
We are going to touch reporting on the introductory concepts of reporting, and as per the requirements that you have, we'll be covering all these concepts as part of day 1 today. And then, we'll be going further in our upcoming sessions. Coming to Workday. You don't need any kind of scripting, not even a kind of single script statement. You wouldn't be needed. And because there is no database for Workday, there is no backend for Workday system. Everything is a single application. You create report, tweak the data in the report. Everything will be happening in a single system, and there is no connectivity to the database for Workday system. In that case, you'll not be writing any kind of sequence or any kind of queries to return the data that is sitting in Workday. All you need to know when you're actually reporting something from where you wanted to return the data, what you wanted to return the data, and from there you wanted to return the data. These are the two things that you need to be aware, and probably we are going to talk in that more in the entire session that we're going to discuss today. Well, as I said, you don't need any kind of queries. You don't need any kind of databases. You don't need any kind of sequence to return the data in the Workday, because the data in the Workday will be stored as business object. A business object is a model of Workday. When someone asks you what is the data model of Workday, it's a kind of object model. The Workday stores data in the form of objects. Whatever you create, employee data, employee personal information, employee dependent information, or anything related to performance. Anything in HCM or anything related to finance, any data that you actually create in Workday, that will be the data model of Workday. The data model will be stored in the form of object, which is nothing but a business object. When you compare this business object with the background that you have with the database knowledge, it is nothing but a table. The business object is nothing but a table. You need to know when you're actually creating the reports. You need to know which businessness object that you need to take in order to return the data that is expected from business or from the end user. There are a lot of business subjects that we have in Workday, and we'll be creating a lot of reports on each business object. Not when I say, there are 1000s of business objects, but we're not creating all the 1000s of reports. We'll be creating the reports on multiple business objects. As per the data requirements, as per the kind of use cases that we have specifically in Workday. We'll be creating multiple reports with a different business object. On high level, business object is nothing but a table. Then you compare with your relational database management understanding. And now when you compare your child table in RDBMS, we call it as related business object in Workday. Related business object is nothing but your child table, which actually associates with primary business object. You can also call it as primary business object. Primary business object is nothing but a table which actually holds all the master data, and the related business object is a kind of child table which you will be associating with primary business object. This may be anything. This may be anything. You will be just associating as a related business object to primary business object, which is nothing but a child table. I first define all the definitions and we will give you examples. And then you have the table right. You have the table, and when you are actually trying to return the data from the table, what data has been returned, is actually the criteria, right? When you're actually returning employee data, or employee termination data, or employee active information data, all this is a kind of data. When you have a table, when you wanted to view the data in the table, which is nothing but we call in Workday data source. This is nothing but data source. Data source is nothing but view of your business object. Now coming to examples. We call it as SQL viewing URM. Now coming to examples. Suppose if you wanted to return the data of employee, what is the table that you will be using? Something related to employee you will be using, right? Similarly, in Workday, we have business object that actually pulls all the employee related information called worker. Worker is a primary business object and it is the foremost business object that we have in Workday, which is used in maximum cases. Most of Workday reporting will be happening on worker business object because Workday is a kind of people system, right? Workday is a kind of HR data which maintains all the HR employee data. And if you wanted to return employee data from Workday, all the data will be sitting in worker. If you wanted to return employee personal information, if you wanted to return employee employment information, employee compensation, employee performance, employee talent information, everything is related to worker, right? Worker is a primary and super business object that I can say, which you will mostly use in Workday. And you actually return the data from worker business object. When you take worker business object, and as I said, it is a primary business object. You can associate any other child table, which is nothing but relational related business object, to the primary business object. Now we are returning worker information, right? If you wanted to return dependent information of worker, if you wanted to know who is the dependent of this worker, what is the relationship that employee has, with this dependent, and what is the age of dependent. All this information you wanted to know, which will not sit in worker business object, because that sits in dependent business object. Here we will be associating dependent business object to worker. As how we know you join, two tables, right? We will be adding related business object as dependent to primary business object, which becomes a kind of related business object. And this one would be a kind of primary business object. When you actually report, you will be getting all the employee data along with dependent information, where you will be seeing all the dependent information associated with that employee. That is how you will be actually making related business object. You will be making related business object associated with primary business object. And you can add n number of related business objects to your primary business object. There is no kind of limit that you can restrict. Only these are the child tables or these are the related business object that you can link to primary and report the data. It's not like that. You can add any number of related business object to the primary business object and report that to view the data as how you want it to have. There is no comparison between Workday and the queries that you write. You just add your related business object to Workday report and whatever data that you wanted to have dependent age, dependent relationship, dependent name, all these things you can add. There is no kind of key that you will be making as a primary key. All this will not be making here. It's a kind of, just take an example of Excel. Just take this as a kind of, business object. Let's assume this as a kind of worker business object. It should be holding. Is there location? Is it worker business object which is actually pulling all this information that you have given as a fee? Now you want it to have different information. To do this, worker business object, you will be adding dependent business object and from there. You're creating now, I'm giving an example that you're creating a report with worker and you're adding dependent as a kind of related business object. Now let's take in different scenario. Someone asks you, can you get me all the employee dependent information of worker? Then someone asks you to get me all the dependents of the worker. What do? You will not create with worker as a business object, right? You'll create a report with a dependent business object as a primary business object. Then your dependent will not be your related. Your dependent will become primary business object that will be reporting all the dependent information, and you'll be actually adding worker information as a kind of related business object. Here, in this second scenario that I'm giving, your dependent will be becoming primary business object. Let's say if you wanted to, as I said, worker is a kind of super business object which actually will have all the employee related information. Let's say now you wanted to have performance reviews. What rating manager has given to the employee? You wanted to know. This sits in different business object, right? Employee reviews will be sitting in a different business object, which is nothing but employee review. Now you wanted to know which worker has got what rating that manager has. What you can add? Employee review you can add as a related business object and get the reviews that manager has given to the employee. Any business object that will associate to the primary business object, you can add it as a related business object. That information you can get from Workday. Let me show how you can understand that. This is the standard report. Business object details is a standard report that returns all the business objects that are available in Workday. You can take the reference to identify what business objects that are available in Workday. Primary business in worker business object. Now, if you can see, these are all the fields that are currently sitting in worker business object. Might be delivered. Fields might be calculated. Probably this will discuss later and coming into the business object, which you're asking about. If you come to related business object, you can see with worker business object what all the related business object that can be linked. You can see around 5573 objects that can be actually linked and can be added as a related business object and can be created as a report. This is the list of related business object that can sync up with worker business object and can be created as a report. And the other case you know that you can consider is from other business object where worker can be associated as a related business object. Links from related business. These are all the objects where your water can be considered as related business object. From there you can create worker report. Worker is a primary business object and dependent in the related business object. Now dependent as fields relationship, dependent name, dependent age. This is how we will be actually syncing up a multiple business object and you'll be making when you are not in clarity that what business object can be associated with which related business object. Some people will be actually creating and let's say, for example, I know worker report, people will be creating and people will be asking, I'm not able to actually pull a training record of an employee. When I'm trying to pull training as a kind of business object to worker, I'm not able to get that. Training information from worker, where there is no kind of syncing or that will be happening. Probably you need to do some calculations in order to get that one. Directly, you cannot. There are certain business objects which cannot directly associated with primary business objects. In such cases, you need to actually tweak that data through calculated fields in order to get the data from that primary business object. That is, a calculated field is the kind of secondary concept which we'll be getting into. But the primary and related business object will be actually a kind of parent-child relationship that will make you to create data with a number of related business objects that you can create. You can create worker primary business object as a kind of report, and you can add dependent as related, and you can add employee reviews as a related, and you can add compensation history as a related business object. You can add any number of related business object and return the data. Because we are not actually making any query here. I'm trying to create one basic report with multiple business objects. Just to know, I'll not talk more on this, but just to clear the key kind of content in the biggest tab. I'll be talking in a while all these options, and I'll be talking in a while. I've taken data sources worker, all workers. You can have terminated contractors. All categories of employees will be here. Now, this is a kind of report of finishing page. Data source. I've taken all workers where you can see the primary business object that comes under all workers is a worker business object. Now I'll add multiple business objects here. Some basic information. Now I wanted to know some dependent information here. Add dependent as a business object here, which is nothing but a related business object here. One more related business object related to payroll. Now here I've taken three categories of data. I wanted to know employee, related employee basic information, and employee different information, and employee payroll information. I'm not made any kind of, key attachment or anything that I'm not concerned. I'll just run the report. Here you have not made any kind of key attachment or you have not created any kind of uniqueness of the primary key. You just add the number of related business that you wanted to have and the related fields or data that you wanted to return and create a report or another board. That's it. You'll not be actually making any kind of, creating any primary key here that associate all the three business object and become a kind of primary key which actually returns the data and all. That thing, probably you'll not be doing when you're actually considering the primary and related business objects concept. Here I have not made anything as a kind of unique. I can remove employed also without employed. Also, I can run a report with these three business objects. I can remove entire worker information. Also, I can run these two with the dependent and related with just dependent and the payroll results. I can just run a report, but my primary business object would be worker only, even if I remove. You cannot use the related business object filter in the primary filter option. You need to go to subfilter in order to have any filters related to related business object. You need to add all the related business object from which you wanted to return the data or you wanted to filter the data. You need to add that related business object and add the fee which you wanted to fill them probably will be covering in our filter concept. But yes, as I said, if you wanted to, since here payroll is a kind of related business object. If you wanted to filter the data from payroll, you cannot use in filter. You need to use in subfilter. You cannot get data from multiple data sources. In the report, you can only take one data source, whatever you want, and then create a report on it. If you wanted to get two data sources, that is a different concept. You need to create an integration and have multiple reports attached to that integration. Write a code to match the data and then return the data. That is a kind of integration concept where you will be doing that. But in a report, you cannot combine two data sources in a single report. Only you can do this. You can actually add a number of related business objects and get the data that you wanted to have. You know employee before a candidate became employee. A lot of transactions would have happened in recruiting. All such things will happen through the business object, through data source called business process transaction, which is a kind of different data source which will be looking at the history of the employee. Any kind of transaction that employee would have undergone or currently undergoing might be no recruiting transactions. Now, when a job application has been applied, reference check has been performed and reference check has been completed. Background check would have completed and then employee would have offered kind of an offer stage. And from offer stage, employee would have come to hiring stage and then would have come to employee. All these things you can get from the business object called all business process transactions. There is a data source called all business process transactions which will actually will the complete history of employee becoming from candidate to the current date. Whatever transaction that employee has undergone, be it recruiting, the job application, the number of job application the candidate has applied, everything will getting in a business process transaction report. We'll be able to report under a single data source with all the recruiting related activities. Not only recruiting, I can say any other transaction business process. Transaction is a kind of data source which actually identifies, detects whatever transaction that are going for an employee in Workday system. Termination is one thing it detects and promotion is one thing it detects and any kind of transfer, location transfer, it detects. All these directions will be happening with one data source called business process transaction. Only thing is you need to choose when you create a report with business process transaction. You need to tell the report what transaction that you wanted to know. You wanted to do hiring. It will give complete transaction of hiring. If you wanted to give compensation, it will be a complete history of compensation. What is the kind of historical annual appraisal ratings that employee would have got all these things? You need to give your report the transaction and it will return all the transaction details of an employee. These are part of a complex reporting. Probably we'll be creating these reports. As on when we go as per the agenda, we'll be creating these reports as well. Now coming back to our basic thing, where we were at data source. Now we are well aware of a business object, now related business of work and data source. Any questions with these three? Because these three are very important for your reporting. If you're completely aware of the background of the primary business object, the related business object and data source, you must be playing with the reports. Now considering to reporting. As I've shown you the way of reporting, you know how you actually deal with the data sources and worker. Now coming to reporting. In Workday reporting, we have two types of reports. Two types of reports which are delivered, reports which are nothing but standard reports and custom reports. And the reports are nothing but which are provided by working to its customers, where you'll not have an option to, add the fields that you wanted to have just, run the report and view the data. Those are kind of custom reports, standard reports. And it comes based on the access that you have to manage any kind of payroll information or compensation related information. You need to have such access to run this information, to run the standard reports, to view all the compensation related information. If you're actually assigned with the report writer security group, you should be able to create reports. But in order to get the data of compensation, in order to get the data of any kind of confidential information of the employee, like compensation performance reviews, personal information, you must be associated with that complete security. Then only when you create a report, you will be able to return the data. Standard reports are nothing but which are delivered by Workday to all its customers to actually use when there is no need of any kind of customization. When you wanted to actually use a standard report, you'll just run a standard report and view the data that meets your business needs. And in standard reports, if you feel that some of the data is missing and you wanted to add just one or two fields, which is important for just two fields, you cannot go and create another new custom report. You can just have those fields added to the standard report, which makes sense, with complete data that you wanted to have. But you know the standard data in standard report. There are further two types of reports. One is Express. Express for reports. The other one is Report Writer reports. Standard reports. You have further of two types. Express for Report Writer. Now, the difference between Express for Report Writer is, as I was telling you, when you wanted to actually customize your standard report and add some of the data to that one. Then you will be using Report Writer as a kind of standard report. You can copy this and you can add those two fields that you wanted to have and make your required report how you want it to have. But there is a kind of Express report which you need to know that Express for reports cannot be copied. Those are just for usage. Whatever Workday delivers, you just need to use as it is. You cannot copy Express for reports, but you can copy Report Writer related reports and make them according to your requirements by actually copying that report. And remember, when you actually convert or copy Report Writer, standard related reports to custom report, by default those will be copied. Those will be created as advanced report in Workday. When you actually copy standard report to custom report, By default, those will be copied as advanced report, which is one of the type of report we have in Workday. It will be copied to advanced report. Now the way to actually identify what kind of standard reports are there in Workdays. We have a delivery report called all standard reports. All standard reports are the kind of delivery report we have, which returns all the standard reports that are available in Workday. From there, you can see a kind of a standard report that Workday has delivered to all its customers. From there, you can know which is report writer type, which is express for type, and which can be copied and which cannot be copied. From there, you can get to know. You see, these are all the 30 to 18 kind of standard reports we have, under which you can have both report writer as well as express for. We have standard reports which are actually delivered by Workday. These are not created by any customer or any kind of customer organization resources. These are directly provided by Workday to its customers who just use as per their requirements. And the standard reports cannot be copied. When I say it cannot be copied, it cannot be customized unless you copy. It won't have an option to edit the report or to make changes to the report. You just have option to run them. That's it. You will be running those standard reports within standard reports. There are further two types of reports. I can say one is express for the other one is report writer. Express the difference between these two report types in standard is express for reports cannot be copied to custom report. You just need to use as it is. What Workday has provided is just need to use as it is. And there is another report type called report writer, which is a kind of customized one. You can copy any of the standard report, which is of type of report writer, and you can copy that to custom report at the fields that you wanted to have and make a copy and run a report. That's how we can actually perform copy to standard report, copy to custom report from standard, and make your report as per your own requirements. Add the fields, add the filters, anything that you can do as per your own requirements when you copy standard to custom. That becomes a kind of custom report. Another thing is when you actually copy your report writer standard report to custom report, by default it actually copies to advanced report. And also, if it is a search report, if there is another report called a search report which is delivered by Workday, if it is search report, automatically when you copy the search report, it will be a search report only. But when I'm talking about normal tabular reports, which actually gives the data in a tabular format, when you copy such kind of report, writer related standard reports, when you copy them, those will be by default converted to advanced reports, which you can add calculated fields. You can tweak the data anything that you can do as per your business needs or your own requirements. As you know, we are aware of how to actually have view the standard reports and how to know which report is a kind of report writer and which report is the kind of express for report. You should be able to get that information here. And you already know that express for reports cannot be copied and report writer related reports can be copied. And when you access a task called copy standard reports, custom report, which you need to know that when you access this task, you need to understand that all report writer related standard reports will be coming here. other than report writer related reports. You cannot find any other ExpressWord report because you cannot copy ExpressWord reports at least. Now let's say if I wanted to take my random, I'll be entering some address. There is a thing called address related standard report. I click on which I'm trying to copy. The moment you actually click on copy, you'll be seeing report type has got advanced and data source has gone kind of countries. And then you can rename is a copied version of your report. And if you wanted to have your report to be temporary available and for future, you don't want it to have for just time being for 1 or 2 days. You want it to have to just compare the data. You can just select the temporary report and go for adding any further fields that you wanted to have. An address for country report. And after 7 days by default, when you select the checkbox called a temporary report, by default, after 7 days, this report will get wiped off from your system. That's the kind of feature that we have an advanced report. You can actually select the temporary report by default when you check this checkbox when you're creating. It will calculate a 7 days from today, and after 7 today, it will get deleted by default. And if you wanted to have more than 7 days, you can hard code them by entering which target date that you want to have this report to get by profit we can use from here. Let's say no kind of checkbox that I wanted to show. Now this is how we know I'll be actually copying and where I'll be the first step of having custom reports from standard report. I can add any number of fields that I wanted to have. Now, as per our own requirement, I can add, we know address countries a primary business object. You can add anything related to country as a related business object to have the data from the business object. You can actually copy your standard to custom and make your own data. Now to find then, just if you don't know what to actually give as a kind of related, and actually go and click on all our primary business object expansion. But as it is, actually click on that. To know what your primary business object is and global fields you can see. You can see which field that can be used as a related, and then accordingly you can have your own report, can be built accordingly. Business object. But then I think if you have such kind of requirements, once all the needful fields are added to the custom report, which is copied from standard, you can, just as it is, has how you manage with custom reports submitted and run it whether you do, just to confirm whether all the internal data that you added as a kind of related business object is populating on. But we know you typically manage, copying standard to custom. Actually, these are in a default field, default prompts. I can say that comes from the data source. The field that I've added, you can see country region is added as a kind of a relative business object which has got country region and region code here. That's how many. You have customized it as how we wanted to add those two fields, and you have made your own report. Now you wanted to actually save this report under specific name, and you have multiple reports which are category which has to be categorized under that particular name. And you don't want it to go with each name from the search bar and that type that name and find that you know. Report all those gender posts. You have an option called tagging the report to one of the name, and you can combine all those reports to that particular tag and actually access the tag here to get your own report. Number of reports that are attached to the tag. Where you actually define where you have your primary business, subject report type and data source type. You also have report tags. Create a report that. Now I can add any number of reports to this JI group. I can add, let's say now, let me take a few of the reports that I already have with this tenant. I can tag all those reports to this report tag. And when I actually access this in my search bar, all the reports that are tagged under this report tag will be populated. Now I've taken one of the existing report on it, which was already there in the report. I've taken and I've tagged to this one. we have a report called custom reports. You have. It's up all the reports that are available in your. You can add, you can take this report. And I did this report and add report back to this report. Filter or add a column as a report that will actually get all the tags that are added to each report. And then you can filter the blank of this report, which can actually get its reports are not tagged to that one, and that we can actually identify. All you need to do is need to go for all custom report and of course standard report. Copy this one, add a new column called custom tag report that, and then you should be able to get that one. You can filter the blanks where you can know which reports were not tagged to that report. The tags actually. Anything you know, not only tags. If you wanted to know how many calculated fields that are being used in all the customer reports, or if you wanted to know which report is being used with this calculated field, or which is referencing this management level kind of field. If you're very hard enough for you to actually identify the field from all the reports, you can in this case is you can go for all custom reports and you can filter with the field that you wanted to have, or you also have self-reference fields here. You can filter with those kind of fields to actually make your reporting requirements very easy, that you can know what are the reports that are being used with management. Probably recently we got some update from Workday that not Workday can stay. But based on current release that we are getting into next month, where we are going to next release for Workday. For the customer, from whom I'm actually supporting, they had a kind of requirement. They had a kind of requirement, their job levels, right, which is nothing but a management level. They are going to change that job level to job category. Now we know it's kind of hard. You need to know where which all the report that we have used job level or management level. You can't again go to. We can't search every report and find job management level in each report, which is actually too much time consuming activity. In that scenario, you actually smartly go access this report called custom report and customize this report as how you want it to have. Add management level field or filter self reference field as management level and run your report. You should be getting all the reports that are using this management level as a field. Similarly, you can add tags. You can add any of the digital columns that you wanted to know where all the report level. You wanted to actually filter the data. Everything can be managed by all custom reports, which actually holds. All the custom report that you create in Workday will be coming under this report. Anything that customer report is holding. Management level is a delivered field only. It's not like cal field or custom field that we create, which is provided by Workday. If you wanted to know where which report is using management level, this is the best way that I was referring, instead of actually investing your lot of time. You know there is an express report called View Compensation History kind of express report. Now there was a request to one of my team member. Business was asking, hey, can we actually add one prompt to this report? Making business users to give a flexibility through organization. They can run a compensation report and view the statements. My team member was actually struggling to edit the report and to add the prompt to that report. Then you know that request came to me by accessing the task in your search bar. From there only you can get to know whether your task you are accessing can be customizable or not. All express reports are nothing but tasks which cannot be actually copied or which cannot be customized. I was talking about. I don't know whether this tenant has that, but let me. This was the report that one of our businesses that was asking to actually this already has. They were asking to add a few more problems to this, one like managers, another, like the department cost center kind of department they were asking. And my team member was actually struggling to actually add those problems, which cannot be done because there's a kind of extra score thing. Though this is a report, but this is again a task. All express reports are tasks in your workday, which can be accessed from your search bar and manage everything, the data that you wanted to retrieve or seek. I told my team member, just let them know that this cannot be actually. This is a delivered task which cannot be customized. If they wanted to know again, a kind of rework has to be done with all the report creation, attaching compensation statement. That's again a kind of huge effort will be needed. Anyways, we are able to access a report from organization which is giving all the related information, right? That should actually suffice. Some of the requirements the business might be having, but it's too hard to achieve in this case. And when you see view compensation review statement, these are kind of a delivered compensation statement that employees will be getting, which manager will be to every employee. In the background, there will be a kind of work layout which will be attached. If you wanted to change the design of this thing, entire statement has to be changed. And in the background, the layout has to get changed. It's a kind of, too many efforts that we need to invest. But just for one prompt, it doesn't make sense to change the entire design, right? As a team member, let them know that the entire design has to be changed, which is a kind of too much activity which cannot be managed now, probably in future. There is a kind of request that most of the stakeholders are requesting for that option because there's a manager report. Every manager will be having access to this and they'll be giving their organization name. Once they give all the statements related to the team, members will be coming. Let's vote for all the managers. If all the managers are requesting that they need to have a cost center prompt or any other prompts we can consider, and we can take it as a project. That kind of instructions that we give. And that's how you typically manage. Some of the requirements will be too hard. And you need to let your business also know that the difference between customization and the delivery, because they might be not understanding. They might be thinking and everything can be customized in Workday very easily. But which is not that case. Good to go to custom reports. Now we have seen all the background, the reporting, and know this much on standard reports. Now coming to the custom report, which is a kind of core area where you guys are involved in managing a lot of custom reports, a lot of reports developing right from the scratch in managing custom reports. When you get a requirement of creating report requirements, You guys will be mostly dealing with all the custom report requirements. When someone asks you a kind of reporting requirements, let's say, for example, some recruiting business team will reach out to you. Hey, can you get me all the report that actually pulls all the open requisitions, all the job recognition information? Since you're new to work, new to reporting, you know some basics of standard reports, how to access the report, how to view the data, how to run a report. But considering the kind of business requirement, when some kind of requirement that you get in this scenario, you actually know. When you know what to return the data, you should be able to give the inputs and you can run the report. But the thing here is you need to know what information that you need to use to get the requisition information. Such kind of things you know initially. You know when you're getting your footprints into Workday reporting. You need to know some kind of things which makes your initial job very easy. When such kind of requirement, business requirement, comes, the first thing that you need to do is this, considering the same example that I was referring, job requisition related reports. Someone recruiting team has asked me, I wanted to know how many open job requisitions are there or how many has got closed, how many has got filled. Such kind of things. When some business user asks you, you need to actually, you need to actually know how to actually manage that information. There are some kind of delivered reports which you need to use during the initial stage to actually manage that information. Consider the case that I'm talking about job requisition report. Now, I don't know what source that I need to take, what business object that I need to take, because there are a lot of reports that actually manages recruiting information. But I don't know which exactly the one that actually meets my requirement and which I need to use. You need to just access the delivery report called all data sources. Which actually gives complete data source that sits in Workday. There are a number of sources. It is actually taking time to process, and they've done that. Now I got the sources that are there in Workday. And now, from this list of sources, I need to know which meets my requirement and which I need to consider to create the custom report that the recruiting team has asked me. What was the request that I got? Requisition related report, be it open, be it closed, be it filled, anything. Just access the job requisition term here. There are some sources related to job requisition. I can use any of these things here to actually create a report on job requisition. I have all job requisitions which meets my requirement and I can take this as a source and go for creating a custom report. Now tell me, when I ask you, get me a report which actually returns all the closed positions in Workday. How do you access that? When I ask you to create a report that returns all the closed positions in Workday. Concerning the same example that I've given, this is actually a kind of skills that you need. When the requirement is to actually create a report on closed positions, taking a report on requisitions, and adding the filter for closed positions, you actually know. When there is a direct data source on positions, Why do you need to go for job requisitions? Just search for you have position related data sources which you can take and directly access the report. All open positions are there. All positions are there which in the filter that you are seeing, which can actually put in a sub filter directly in primary business object filter. You can put and access the code. In the example that you are saying, job requisitions. Yes, you can get position information also in job requisition, but you need to do sub filter in the report. But the requirement that you are getting directly is all the closed positions. There is no requisition kind of information that you need to give. All the closed positions information that you need to give. In such cases, you can actually take the direct data source that actually gives position information right. Why do you actually go for a requisition? And play around with filters a lot of again. Investigation and efforts are required here. You can just take the position, create a report, and submit your recording, which gives accurate data. These are the kind of skills that you initially need when you wanted to, make your reporting very easy. It will, initially, you might be needing these kind of things, to actually get some familiarity with the data sources. But once you get used, I think there is no need of getting into this. You can by yourself, just create a report and with the right data source and go for report creation. This is one of the thing that I actually to my all team members, which makes them very easy. And actually, when they get any kind of reporting requirements, this tip will make them very easy to, quickly get a report created as per needed. Just, if you're getting any kind of huge reporting requirements initially, this would help. And I think you should be able to manage your requirements. Now coming to actual custom reports and how custom reports are managed and all. As you already know that standard reports are provided by Workday and where you need to actually customize that if you wanted to get any kind of other fields that you wanted to have. But when your standard report is not fulfilling the data needs, but when you have huge data tweaks, even when you copy kind of, huge requirements will be huge efforts. You need to invest to actually add all the data that you wanted to add in the field. That source might work, but the data that business was asking might not. Might need a lot of additional fields, need to add. When you see that your standard reports are not meeting are not meeting the needs of your business or your reporting requirements, you can go for customer reporting where you can have your report built right from the scratch. You can choose your own data source. You can choose your own business object. You can actually define the filters that you wanted to have, fields that you wanted to have. You can add calculated fields, data tweaks, data optimization, anything that you can do in the custom report. Custom reports are nothing but which are created by customer for their own purpose. It's not a kind of, any kind of, in custom report you will be getting any kind of standard areas, It's not like that. Whenever you create a standard report, which is nothing but where you're going to create data as per your own requirements, where you cannot get. You cannot achieve that in a standard report. And the moment you create your custom report and submit it, you are the owner of the custom report. You will be becoming the owner of the custom report. and no other person other than you will be able to access that custom report. Because that is created by you. You are the owner unless you authenticate that access to another person, no other person can be able to access that report. Let's say, for example, I've been in a team and I've created all the business cases. I know business request that I got. And my team members were working in a different request. And I've created all the report requests that business has given me. And as I have scheduled those report and business user used to get the output file and that will meeting their needs. And one fine day got terminated. And all the reports that I've created, my team member does not know. And all the scheduled jobs are getting failed here. Business reached out to you. Hey, Amit was there and he used to actually, send all the profiles to us. We used to get every day every file, but now we know we are not getting. Business reaches out to you. What do? You don't know what Amit has created because Amit has not shared those reports to you. It will be typical for you to handle, though you have a security access to find all the customer reports that are there in one day. But you don't know the name right. You don't know the name that you wanted to identify, right? That is the reason why the recommended and best practice that reporting follow is whenever you're creating, I guess even you guys will be following standard naming convention. When you create a report with your organization name and business requirement and the data that is returning. But again, since you're new to this, I'm just reiterating this to identify any report, maintain a standard format to that customer report, standard naming convention to the customer report. Tomorrow, when someone leaves that organization just by name, I can actually get that report. And the moment you create a custom report, share to the authorized security group that your team has. Whatever the security group that all your team member has access, share your report to all authorized. You know that security group that your team manages, that every person in the team will be able to access that report. In tomorrow, if you're on leave, and when someone has a kind of similar requirement, when business reaches out to the hat, have some kind of, customization to the report, add additional fields, or, give a kind of order request to run the report and all. You must be aware of the report, right? You must have access to that instead of again searching and identifying the report. You must have access that the moment you actually access the report in the search bar, you should be able to return the data and you can manage. Whenever you create a customer report, the standard and primary most important thing is maintain a standard naming convention to the report. Workday is your own product, right? Workday is your own product. All the report that you are creating is for your business, not that you're working for an external customer. All the reports that you're making are for your own customers, where they'll be referring those reports. And since these are all your own reports, and I think maintaining some kind of standard to the naming convention we typically follow, we actually suggest to all customers like ER, which is customer report and or the name purpose of the report. We actually suggest all this naming convention to all customers. OR name and business are purpose that you can actually mention to identify what this report is actually doing. When someone new hire joins to the Workday team, though he is a report expert, but by looking at the report name, he needs to understand what this report is returning right. which makes easy to identify the report and have some kind of understanding about the data that it is returning. This was the kind of standard naming convention that we actually suggest to all its customers, that everyone, be it business user, be it developer, be it manager, whoever you know are authenticated to access the report, should be able to understand what data that they're accessing. Such thing, you can actually follow, and the same example which I've given in my case, when someone determinates without sharing the report to any other team member, there will be a kind of failures with the scheduled jobs. There must be the moment you create a customer report, a kind of IS. Ooh, it has to be owned by integration system user, not by the any of the user. It has to be owned by ICE. That there will be no impact when scheduled jobs. When a trouble of employee termination or when employee gets terminated, access in the report will not have any kind of issues. That's kind of best practice. I think you must be falling for integration. But I think the same will be applied for reports as well. And custom report. The moment you create a custom report, you will become the owner of the custom report. And unless you share the report to another user, the another user cannot be accessing that report. That's one thing that you need to know. And as I was showing the standard reports, right? We have data sources where you can find all the data sources that are available in Workday from these sources. And similarly, there will be some kind of field level information also that you will not be aware, and you don't know whether which field is sitting in which business object and how to identify that information or not. When some unknown field that you're actually asking, employee name, employee ID, all these are in a basic information, you can know that these are sitting in a worker business. And when something like, which is a kind of seems like a new field, like, bonus plan enrolled, currently enrolled for bonus plan, some kind of field business is asking, I wanted to know all the employees who are enrolled to the benefit plan. Such kind of information that employee business is asking you. Report filter wise, you're thinking that you can filter at report level for all the benefit plan that employee, but you need to know the field rate which can be used or not for such kind of care. Just give me example. There are other cases where you're not aware of fields, and you'll be actually investigating whether this field is available, going with multiple data sources and see whether in this data source report is coming or not. You'll be actually investing much time. Instead of doing all those things, there is a standard report called report fields. I know, I don't know whether you're aware of this or not, but there is a standard report called report fields, which actually gives you all the fields that are sitting in Workday under each business object. You need to select the business object. If you're not selecting, it will run for all the business objects, but it will take little time. Since we have more than 50,000 fields that are available in Workday, it will take little time. In the scenario, you can just give me example. In this way, you can actually find all the related fields that are meeting your needs. And you can actually find which business object this is holding, and accordingly you can plan your custom report patient. Any field that you can actually find from here which you are not aware which is typically used. Come here, enter the field, and once you click on, you'll be getting into all the business objects that this field is sitting in. From there, you can actually decide which business object that you need to use for your reporting purpose. You can see here this is actually sitting in additional benefit election. And if this is the area that you wanted to have, you can actually go with business, add benefit election business object, and go for your reporting creation. And then accordingly, your data needs will actually return as per your expectation. This makes your decision also which objects needs to be considered on the decision, also it will be easier for you. It actually making you know when you're actually managing some external reporting needs, vendor related reports. That makes your data accurate when you're actually managing that reports. You can add the same report will work. Same report will work. And shove this. I can do the business subject. I will give all the fields that are sitting in that. All the fields that are sitting in this business object. And you can also know what is the field type, whether it is numeric or currency or boolean. You can know from here. You should be able to access the data source report only, which will be actually getting all the business object with all the data sources. We have a business object related, but that actually asks you enter the business object name, which gives all the things. But if you go to data source, this gives all the sources on their business object, which would be easy for you to make decision in creating reports on. You can see all the business subjects that are sitting here. This report you can extract and into Excel and check for all the data sources for all the business object that you wanted to have and see what business object is holding what data source. And also we know how to identify the field level issues. We need to know how to actually find the sources and all. And you need to know the steps of actually managing the customer report creation. First, when you get a kind of report requirement and when you are ready to create a report, you need to know what business object should be in the report sitting on. First thing is what business object that you need to know to create your report. Second is data source. Because data source, you can actually enter the data source and actually create a report. And then make sure the report has to be web service enabled or not. I don't know whether you're handling any reports related to integrations, but if you are handling any reports related to integration, you need to make your web services. Your report as a web service enabled report that your integration will be able to identify the report that you are creating. And then report type is one of the important things that you need to make, which report type will work according to your requirement, whether it is advanced or just a simple report or matrix report. I need to cover all the features of the report that which report has to be, returned as per business requirement. You need to choose your report type. Then, after going into report definition, give all what are the fields that you wanted to give in the report level. Field information and filter information. What data has to be filtered out from this data? Filter information. And if there are any things like, if there is anything, any need of prompting the data. I know prompting is also one of the best features in the report which needs to be discussed in detail, but in high level. And I'm giving you the steps of accessing the report requirements. Filter the data as how you want it to have. Prompt. If business has any kind of prompt needs, prompt configuration on the internet. And then run the report. That's the basic thing. These are all the basic features that you need to know before you go ahead and create a report. Once you are aware of full details of these features, you can write, enter the tasks, go for report creation, give the data source, give the whether it is in a web service or not web service, just to make your data accordingly. And then go ahead and create all the required fields, filter the data, run the report. That's it. These are some straightforward steps of handling your report requirements which you can manage. And when you get any kind of reporting requirements, the tips that are given you right. Getting into delivered reports, finding them, and finding those reports and according to business requirement, how you can tweak them, and all that you can actually manage according to your requirements and get your report creation. Please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. For more information, contact us sales@upptalk.com.